Hey, dear beloveds, I have switched to my phone because I was trying to do a live and it was getting funky in there. There was nothing happening with that. It was not staying put. So hopefully this will work. I don't have very long. I am having a meeting at 4 o'clock, but I would love to jump straight into business with you. I wanted to read you a little bit of the new chapter of Spiritually Fierce, the second edition, and to give you a little bit of insight into what the path of the priestess means for me. Because as you know, if you've listened to anything that I've shared, it is way beyond the trinkets and superstitions of the New Age. Really, it doesn't matter to me what school of priestess training you come from or what part of the world you believe you need to go to train as a priestess or what particular lineage is more important. To me, the priestess represents something beyond the 3D illusion, something beyond the trinkets and superstitions of the New Age. And so I want to share a little bit with you so that you can understand what I am talking about here. So I'm reading a little bit out of the second edition of Spiritually Fierce, which came out for me as in response to the feeling that I'd left something really important out of the first edition, and a real upgrade of ownership of this as well, really putting a lot more of my own stamp on the practices and really honoring my wisdom and not just, you know, sharing other people's wisdom. You know, as an academic, I think my training in referencing everybody else was so strong that in the first edition, I sort of overcompensated and put a lot of other people's practices and ideas in there. So in this, I guess it's a kind of coming of age for me in this second edition where I am taking a lot more ownership, and I included an entirely new chapter. And this chapter is about moving beyond a superficial spirituality and how the priestess can show us how to do that, and how the priestess is a symbol of a deep spirituality which is about service, that our spiritual seeking is for the betterment of mankind or humankind and not just about our own personal gain. So I'm going to read you a little bit from the chapter 6, the section called The Symbol of the Priestess, and talk about what she means to me, because I don't use her lightly. It's not like I want to be trendy and jump on the priestess bandwagon, or that I'm saying that you need to travel with me to the south of France and kind of be initiated into some ancient ritual to call yourself a priestess. The priestess is available to all of us who want to move beyond a superficial spirituality and to really anchor into our devotion in order to contribute to something better happening for all consciousness. We are priestesses of consciousness, especially in the way that I train my women, and we're not playing in the illusion. We're using our devotion to move us beyond the illusion. So let's have a little story time, hey? I'm going to read you a little bit from Spiritually Fierce, the second edition. The priestess is the symbol of holy power, an embodied power in service to the greater good. Her purpose is to support us to overcome the dream of separation through the development of spiritual sight. Part of my life's work is to understand the responsibility of language. I don't use signs or symbols or words without great consideration of the multiple meanings and possible interpretations of these symbols. The use of the archetype of the priestess is a carefully considered choice. The priestess is the transpersonal bridge between the spiritual energy realm and the earthbound matter realm. It is the vital work, and it is the work for this extraordinary time in which we live. The priestess is the deeply devoted spiritual woman in the world. Her work is different and unique to every woman. The priestess is the symbol of those of us on this path of service being present in the world rather than using our spirituality to shield or bypass or hide us away from the world. She is invested in creating change for the betterment of all, and she is not afraid to get her hands dirty. Her mandate is service. Her service is not to indulge the trinkets and superstitions of the New Age, but to consciously encode a reality for all that moves global consciousness from fear to love. By committing to spiritual fierceness, the path of the priestess, we are looking within to meet the infinite. We must ask ourselves these questions. How deep is my devotion? How active is my faith? Do I have a deep, enduring and abiding practice that buoys me up to weather the storms of life, which will keep coming, by the way, regardless of how devoted we are, because spirituality is not an insurance against the difficult events of life. But if our faith is practiced with devotion, it will guard us against constant disappointment. We will become deeply trusting of life. A good way to gauge the depth of our spirituality is to look at what we do in the privacy of our own home when no one is looking. Devotion prepares us for whatever life presents, including the shocking discovery on my behalf that we have been complicit in a racist world and that we carry the sins of the fathers in our subconscious minds. And that no matter how good we think we are, we have a divine responsibility by right of our birth to get as uncomfortable as hell to serve the greater good. The fear that exists in the world is an illusion, because 3D reality is an illusion. But it is a necessary illusion, for it is how we train our consciousness. That is the very purpose of incarnating on Earth School and the very function of fear. I don't say fear is an illusion so we can bypass other people's experiences or our own, but rather so that we will recognize that we have everything we need to meet it. The illusory nature of fear doesn't give us an opt-out in having to participate in the very real problems of the world. So that is part of the new chapter in the new edition of Spiritually Fierce. And as I say, it's for me so important to keep articulating why I'm using this image of the archetype of the priestess so that it's not looking like a superficial choice, because it certainly isn't. But at the same time, I absolutely don't believe that there is a particular way or path of being a priestess that is superior to another's, and that every woman's path will be the same, will be different, even as we move towards the same purpose, which is to serve the greater good. So how do we show up in the world as a priestess? Well, it's whatever our service is. It's whatever we are most joyfully attracted to doing. As long as what we're doing is here in service, it is absolutely vital that we go towards our joy, because that is how we be the priestess in the world, is to be the living, breathing demonstration of God's holiness, God's power. And that means that we are in our state of optimized being. Our optimized self is joyful. She is expansive. She is generous. She's open. She's wondrous. She is a beacon of light unto the world, and she bridges that pure consciousness state into 3D matter. So she starts with consciousness. She doesn't try to rearrange furniture in a burning building, to use Gary Renard's term. She is able to create a different paradigm for all by remembering that what she spends most of her time doing is not responding or reacting to the dream, but to create the dream in a higher way, a higher state of consciousness for everybody else. So when we're arguing with reality and we're butting our heads up against other people or life situations or events, we've forgotten what we truly are, and we're trying to encode from the level of matter, and it's too late then. You know, once it's in the world, it is much harder to change than to work from the paradigm of pure consciousness. So that's why I call my priestesses in the third level priestesses of consciousness, because we learn not the trinkets and superstitions, not how to, like, you know, burn incense or light candles or where the moon is. All of those things are lovely, but if we perceive them as real, then we have forgotten the uncompromising truth, which is we are God, we are infinite unlimited consciousness, we manufacture reality in accordance with our belief, and we manufacture reality in accordance with the collective unconscious belief. So if we want to make positive change globally, we have to be working on that collective unconscious soup as well as our own individual belief, but we must begin at the individual level. That action then, you will be then by that action called into bigger and bigger service. That's the way it goes, because your capacity to change consciousness, change vibration on behalf of all gets bigger and more holy and more sacred. So we begin with the self and then we expand outwards, and that is what the priestess is. She is that continual expansion into service in a really big way. Now I have to go, even though I'm having such a great time hanging out with you and talking about this topic. If you would like a copy of Spiritually Fierce, the second edition, in return for a review, I'm happy to send out some more free copies. I would love to get some more reviews happening, and if you're keen to read the new version, as I said, it's kind of a coming of age version for me, where I've really put my own stamp on this and been unafraid to own what I know and how I want to share it, and really importantly included this additional chapter on spiritual leadership. Just comment below and I'll contact you for your address. Mwah. Have a beautiful day.